right, let's talk about embracing uncertainty. I want to start by telling you guys a bit of a story how everything in my life has been uprooted in about a month's time. So let's get into that. So about a month and a half ago, I'm living in a small apartment with my girlfriend in Melbourne. It's her apartment. I'm working a job right next door, going in 3 days a week, doing casual shifts. I'm working on making these YouTube videos. There's a lot of elements of sort of just hanging out with her that I'm really enjoying. I've got a couple friends in Melbourne. Things are going pretty well for me. I'm kind of enjoying the flow of things. Her and I had also recently went on a trip to Japan, which was challenging but amazing. I actually just loved Japanese culture. I feel like I just fell in love right away when I got there. But I've been doing this a while, and even though, like I said, there's a lot of elements to this that I really like, I'm also noticing that something inside of me just doesn't really feel completely right. It's almost like I sort of feel like a cardboard cutout of myself. Like this is all stuff that I wanted, but then now I'm kind of embedded in it. There's sort of a sense in me that I don't really feel like I can bring my most authentic self to the equation. I don't really feel like I'm bringing my most authentic self to the relationship. I'm not really showing up to my job with any sense of vigor or vitality. And this starts small. And I'm just noticing that I'm not really in rhythm with my life. And I try to brush it off, it's like, oh, whatever, things aren't perfect all the time. But there's something that seems a bit deeper about it. It seems like I'm not really in touch with what I'm meant to be doing. It feels like I'm ignoring some kind of signal that's sort of around my chest, I would say, sort of around the heart area. I feel like I'm ignoring something inside of me. If you've ever experienced anything like that, you're kind of going through the motions. Things outwardly look pretty good, but inside of yourself, you're getting kind of a sense of, this is not really what I need to be doing right now. This is not really where I'm meant to be. This just keeps ramping up over time. And it's getting to the point where it's kind of surfacing up and becoming more and more conscious over time. I'm recognizing it more and more. After that trip we came back from in Japan, I couldn't really get back into the rhythm of feeling at home in Melbourne. I think there was more that I wanted to explore. There was more that I wanted to do. And I didn't really feel 100% right in my own skin and my own situation. So like I said, this is getting kind of more and more conscious to me. And it's getting to the point where it's starting to grate on me a lot. It's starting to come out in my words when I speak to my friends and my family. It's starting to affect the way I interact with my girlfriend. It's starting to affect any kind of enthusiasm that I have in my job. And it's starting to really just kind of, I feel disaligned. I sort of feel like I'm out of rhythm there. And it's getting to the point where I'm trying to fix it. I'm trying to journal about it. I mean, I'm sure you know how that is. You're trying to get to the root of it. Like, oh, what's going on? What can I adjust here? But the more I actually journal about it and the more I actually consider it, the more I think about it, the more I also learn that I don't really want to be where I'm at. And I'm afraid of it. This is actually really scaring me. I'm afraid of, I have security here, it's like I'm living here, I'm in this relationship, I have this job, I have a plan for this channel. I'm doing this. Like, this is kind of the rhythm of my life. I can't just scrap it. But like I said, the more I'm journaling about it, the more I'm considering it, the more I'm talking to my friends about it, I'm talking to my mentor about it, I'm recognizing that I'm going through the motions of this situation, but my heart's not really in the situation. So one morning, I get up and I'm feeling this particularly strong. I can't help, I'm alone in the house and I'm not working that day. I'm just journaling about it and I'm feeling really out of alignment. I'm feeling like I can't really bring myself into the relationship. I can't seem to sit and make a video or anything. I'm just feeling distracted because there's something in me that's feeling really out of tune. And then I get a phone call that morning. So I'm walking around the house, walking around the apartment. I'm a pacer. So I'm kind of pacing around thinking about it. And then I get a phone call. Pick up the phone and it's my boss. And he's, hey mate, hard conversation. So the company's just been taken over, by the way, by a bigger company. And I'm kind of looking at the shifts since I came back from Japan, and I'm noticing that they're not going to be able to accommodate for everyone. So my boss, hard conversation, mate, but we're going to have to let you go. Someone has to go. And I think I was kind of the weakest link in that equation. I don't really think I was bringing max enthusiasm to that role. And it was weird. It was a strange thing that came up, because it was like, if you've ever been in a situation where you feel like you should be bothered by some information, but in your heart, you're just not. If anything, it's almost like there's a strange sense of relief. And there's kind of like there's a misalignment between what you're actually experiencing and then what you think you should be experiencing. And it was funny because the phone, put down the phone, I'm like, okay. And it's kind of surreal. I'm kind of just, I feel like I'm in a limbo between knowing what to do with this information. I'm just kind of like, okay, that's just kind of happened. And it was very serendipitous that day, because in about an hour and a half, I actually had a call booked with my mentor. So him and I are going to have a big chat. And this is obviously a good opportunity to sort of hash it out with someone who I trust. So I get on the call with him, and we talk for a couple of hours, and what he kind of helps me conclude is that I don't actually care about the job. And not only that, but the reason I'm feeling the way that I am, the reason I'm kind of feeling out of touch, is because it's like I'm kind of growing out of the situation I'm in. It's just like this isn't really meant for me. And it seems like my heart's kind of telling me something, but I'm afraid of that information, right? Because it's uncertainty. It's a very uncertain thing, because you have something to hold on to in this situation, but then you're getting to this point where it's like, I don't really know this is right for me. And that noise, it's almost like there's this message coming up from the unconscious, and it's making itself louder and louder and louder until you can hear it, until you acknowledge it, until you take action in this direction. So that's the first thing that happens. I lose that job, and I manage to integrate that pretty quickly. I'm not really that bothered by it. But then it kind of turns my attention to the relationship. And I'm noticing that although there are so many good things about the relationship, and although I have a lot of love and respect for her as a person, again, I can't really bring my full self into it. I don't really think it's right. I don't really know exactly what I want instead, but just something seems to be pulling me in a different direction. So this goes on for another week or two. Her and I have this trip planned together. We our lives are tied up together. We live together. We've been together for a while, but this is just getting more and more. And I remember one day I went out for a walk, and I'm having I'm not on a phone call, but I'm doing like voice messages on WhatsApp with a friend. And it's like Pandora's box. Like my heart just opens up to him, and I'm just like, hey man, like I don't really know what to do in this relationship. And he was sharing with me a similar story in his life, how he was in a really powerful relationship in his life, something that he got a lot of value out of, but his heart wasn't really in it. And talking to me about that and hearing his story with it and just what I'd let out, I felt like it was a weird thing. It's like I'd been hanging out in this doorway trying to figure out where to go next. And like, is this the right one or isn't it? Like said, there's a lot of uncertainty there. And then I'd went through and I realized that this isn't like a revolving door. This is a one-way door. So once I'd let that out, I couldn't go back. And I knew that I had to deal with it right away. So I mustered up all the courage that I had in the moment. I walked home and I tell her everything. I tell her that, I love her and I care about her and I only want the best for her, but I'm not going to be able to bring my best self into this. And this isn't really what I want. And it's a difficult conversation. It's a rough one. It's one that, I shed a tear on because it's so hard for me to say this. It's not like one of those it's not like a fight where it's like, oh, I'm done with you. It's not that kind of breakup. It's a rough one, It's one where it's like we really care about each other, but if I'm really being true to myself, this is not really where my heart is right now. And we talk it out for hours. We get dinner, and it's just, again, it's that surreal sense like with the job where it's like, okay, I don't really know how I'm meant to feel. It's like I need time to process this. But like I said, I'm living at her apartment, and in order for us both to be able to process it, obviously we're going to need some space from one another. And I don't just have like a condo nearby or anything like that. I have a bit of savings, and I have a couple of options. I can start looking for someone to bunk with in the city. I can start looking for a new housemate right away. I can come back where I'm living now with my parents on the other side of Australia. I can do that. But again, either of those options, I'm very in touch with this uncertainty there, because like they're options that would give me a little bit more certainty. They would give me a bit more ground. And in a sense, you could say they're more intelligent options. But they're not right. I don't know what it is. They're not really calling out to me. And then after having this conversation with her, and after sort of patching up the situation and figuring out how we're going to part ways, I want to come back to Japan. It felt like even though I was in Japan for a couple of weeks just a month before, there was something more that I needed to explore there. It was like there was something else I really felt like I needed to get out of it. I didn't know what. Maybe it's just something that it represented to me psychically. In my mind, Japan was a symbol for exploration and getting out of my shell and seeing something new. So I book a trip to Japan in 6 days. Very spontaneous. I don't know I'm going, and we figure out the situation, and 6 days I've got to go to Japan, and I'm scared and excited. You know how they're not that different really at a certain level, I guess. Like there's angst, but there's also like, oh my god, like I'm going to a complete, I'm going my first big solo trip. I mean, I traveled with her, and I've went on some trips throughout Australia before, but I've never been on a solo trip to a different country, a different culture where I don't speak the language or anything. So I'm scared and excited. I have a few things around the house. I sell off some books, sell off a speaker, some earphones, and I have to throw some books away because I can't get rid of them in time. So I have to throw them in the dumpster, throw away some of the paintings that I've done. I pack every single thing that I own into a suitcase, that suitcase right there. I pack the books that I really want to keep into a backpack, and I have a little satchel. And in 6 days' time, I head off. I head off to Japan. I'm going straight to Tokyo. I feel like I'm exactly where I need to be, but also like I'm kind of drifting in open space. But it's beautiful, I'm staying in Osaka in Tokyo, right next to Sensoji Temple. It's a beautiful landscape. I'm going out every day, exploring new places, exploring temples, checking out mountains, checking out the sort of little suburbs and districts in Tokyo. I'm meeting new people, and it's awesome. Actually one night I met someone really cool. I just sort of saw her sitting there, and I was like, hey, I thought you looked interesting. Do you want to hang out? And she was going on a walking tour for Osaka, so it was very serendipitous. She was going in like an hour's time. So she gets dinner, we meet back up, and she takes me on this walking tour. And we ended up hanging out the next day as well. We do another walking tour in Shinjuku, and I learned so much about the city. I learned so much about that temple, Sensoji in Osaka. I learned so much about Shinjuku and sort of some of the underground elements of it. So I felt like I bring up that experience because I had a lot of experiences like that, where there was these little serendipitous meetings, slight acts of courage that transpired into some really cool experiences. And that defines a lot of what was going on in Japan for me. I was just sort of meeting different people and sort of opening myself up to doing new things. I'm kind of riding the wave. After nearly a week in Tokyo, I head to my second destination in Nara. Nara is an ancient town in Japan situated a little bit sort of on an L between Osaka and Kyoto. And when I get to Nara, I check out the deers that they're famous for. They're famous for having about 1,200 deers who roam around the temples and all that, and it's pretty awesome. But the hotel that I'm in is really far out. So every time I want to go out, it's like a whole day trip, So I have to lug down this big road, and then I have to get to Yamato Saidaiji station. And then from there I can go, if I want to go to Osaka, or if I want to go to Kyoto, if I want to check out more of Nara, I'm doing that. And this is awesome, but the sense of that uncertainty is really starting to catch up to me. And I think the breakup's starting to hit me as well a little bit. At first I'm just kind of running off of this, not adrenaline, but just the motion of it. And I start to recognize that there's a lot of uncertainty there. And I'm feeling this resistance to the uncertainty. It's uncomfortable at a certain level. I'm feeling like, man, it's like 1 minute I was doing this, and then it's just like, it almost like you don't notice all the steps and how you got where you got. It's like you can't recall all that. But in the present moment, it's like, I'm just in a complete different place, doing a complete different thing. And again, I get this same sense of like, it's like the opposite now. Before I was like too comfortable being secure, but now it's like I'm almost insecure, even though I'm having a lot of fun and I'm learning a lot of new things and I'm taking in the culture, and I'm feeling this. And this is where I want to start getting to embracing uncertainty, and some of what I realized through a pretty difficult period in Nara, and then a following week in Osaka, and then a long plane ride through Kuala Lumpur back here to Western Australia. So the first thing I realized about this uncertainty is that there is really no way to mitigate all uncertainty, obviously. We like to think that life is structured in a way where we don't have to face up to uncertainty, and we can always kind of have a guarantee. And this is embedded into almost everything in our culture, right? There's a sense of like, it's a strong colloquialism almost. It's like guarantees. This will guarantee you this role in this situation. We want a sense of trust in. We want to know that we're going to be okay. And that's obviously natural. It's a good thing. But we just can't always have certainty. And I think that when we don't embrace uncertainty, we can sell ourselves short, and we can ignore the signals that come up from our unconscious and from our heart. We can ignore that natural communication that comes from somewhere strangely deep down inside of us, seeming to want to communicate something up to our conscious thought. So that's the first thing I notice. I notice that I need to embrace uncertainty. Embrace uncertainty. And I do that by I stop fighting it, I stop resisting it, and I realize I'm lost. I'm not in a situation where I have all the answers. Obviously, I'm in a situation where I'm lost. And the very landscape that I'm exploring, the very place that I'm in right now, it is a depiction of the fact that I am lost and that I am looking to find myself. And it's not, when you're finding yourself, it's not just a matter of like, oh, okay, here I am. It's like, no, there's a journey. This is the whole idea of the hero's journey, right? If you've ever read Hero of 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell, anything like that, the hero first rejects the call, like I was doing back in Melbourne. I'm rejecting, I don't want to deal with that. And then it gets to the point where it's so loud, it's so prominent that you can't reject it anymore. And then you get to the point where you have to answer, you have to pick up that phone. It gets harder and harder to ignore. But then when the hero goes on this journey, and he fights his first threshold guardian, and for me, to be honest, that was ending the relationship and that job ending, and that was the first threshold guardian. That was like the first thing that came up straight away. But once you get past the first threshold guardian there, you are still in the forest. It's not just that you get straight to the Holy Grail. I'm talking in Campbellian terms right now, so if you haven't read Joseph Campbell, it'll probably seem a bit obscure, but in every great story, the hero does come up against a sense of there is a lostness. There is a sense of not quite being at home where he was, but not quite being where he knows he needs to go or where she needs to go. You're in the hinterlands, you're in the middle. And I'm noticing that. And I notice that the only way I can seem to relieve that, and my heart's opening up and I'm actually coming into authenticity and truth with myself, is by being really honest about it and saying I am lost. So that's the first thing I want to bring forth to you today about embracing uncertainty. If there is a lostness and you don't really know what to do, can you embrace that? I think that's a good question, because sometimes when we're narrowing in and we're looking for an answer, narrowing in, we put blinders on. By definition, right? We're narrowing down. We tend to want to just keep taking steps forward, and we're not sometimes that open to taking a step back and to actually reflecting. But when we take a step back and we take those blinders off, we can see the whole panorama. We can see more of what's going on in the surrounding field. And this is what I noticed. There was a lot of options and opportunities, but I had to settle down. I had to calm myself. I had to meditate on it. And I had to be in a moment of, I don't know where I'm at right now, and that's okay. I'm a human being. I am on the hero's journey, and I don't always know what the next thing is. I don't always know what the next direction is. Can you actually embrace it just initially, in the sense that, like, on the very direct level, that you are actually not always going to know the answer? Can you sit with that? Can you familiarize yourself with a sense of not really knowing what the next thing is, and accept that that's a part of your human experience on your journey, and not some thing that we're just meant to reject and always have an answer? So that's the first thing I'll mention there. The second thing I notice is that when I do step back and I open up, I'm starting to think more about, what are my values? What is it that I actually value the most in life? Not like what is going to just excite me right now in this moment, but what are the qualities that I want this life that I'm living, this personality, what do I want to embody? And that's why I'm sitting here talking to you right now. I want to share my experience. I want to hear your experience. I want to connect. I want to practice and go further along my spiritual path with meditation, contemplation, study, visiting these temples in Japan and meditating with Buddhist monks, which I did, even though I couldn't understand what they were saying. It was an amazing experience. And on top of that, I want to be working on my purpose. I want to be working on the things that bring the most to me. Like this life, at least the one that we're living right now, it's not that long. And to be stuck in a place where you don't really feel like you're in alignment with what you value the most, that can, I think that can be pernicious. All right, over time it starts to clog us up, I think, inside, is what I observe. So that's the second thing I'll ask you. What are really your values? And if you don't really know, again, not just looking for the value and looking for the next thing, but actually taking a step back and reflecting and pondering and doing it in a way that's maybe playful. That's what I've found. Reflecting in a way that's playful, that's open. You're embracing the challenge and you're moving with that uncertainty, and you're kind of seeing where it takes you. It's almost like a mild psychedelic experience in a way. You're going for a bit of a voyage of your mind there, and you're being like, okay, what is it that I actually care about? What is it that makes me feel the most alive? What is that thing that is most natural and most inherent to me that I might not really be in touch with right now? And how can I be in touch with it? So that's the second thing. Taking a look at values. I think this is really powerful when we're embracing uncertainty. Because again, uncertainty by definition, we can't hold on to anything, and we're not looking to grasp onto our values and just hold them with all of our tightness. It's not like that. We're looking just to acknowledge them. We're looking to let that value and that quality reflect through us, and to connect with what's going on in that value deep down, and letting it shine through us in the way that it does. It's an allowing and an implementation rather than just a forced approach of that value. So that's the second thing. The third thing that seems to be really important for me, I'm a bit of a procrastinator. I don't know about you. Do you ever procrastinate? Do you ever just have things, you just kind of put them off? Or maybe you just feel like you lack the courage, and there's kind of a sense of like, oh, I'll do it later. The third thing is actually implementing and taking action. When we've taken a step back, when we've started to embrace that uncertainty, when we've opened up to the unknown, when we've started to consider and allow our values, those qualities that matter to us, to shine through, to reflect through us, the third thing I've noticed there is taking an action, even if it's a small action. Like, for example, you might value connection, like me. And that might mean that when you see that person you think is cute or you think is interesting, you have the courage to say, hey, how's it going? I know this is kind of strange, but I thought you looked interesting. I want to say hello. It might mean that maybe you have a value deep down of being a journeyman, being an adventurer, and you want to travel. And maybe that first step is actually just like changing your wallpaper to a picture of, I don't know, Thailand, somewhere where you want to go. It's just some action. So we're not looking to just, here's the most effective action right now. It's more a sense of we're looking to get a momentum going. We're looking to move with a certain force or quality. So I think that's something really important, is getting momentum going. Do you want to create a YouTube video? Have you been thinking about that for a year, but you haven't done it? What is stopping you? Can you actually just get momentum going, even if it sucks? I'm always worried about everything that I make sucking, whether it's a painting or a YouTube video or whatever else. But can you actually have the courage to get that momentum going? Once we're recognizing those values from the second step, we want to get the ball rolling. We don't have to have the perfect thing. We just need to have motion. right? Energy follows thought. And when we start considering that energy moves in that direction, and then we can take an action to consecrate it, to set it down. And it's almost like we're navigating this river, we're navigating this flow. So that's the third thing I noticed, is how can we take a little step of action? Something I've noticed is I value autonomy and independence, sovereignty of mind. But sometimes I won't do my washing or something like that. I'll just leave it be for 2 weeks. And it's disgusting. It smells like sour grapes. And I'm walking around in that shirt. And I'm meeting those new people. And it's they're like, whoa, you smell like grapes. And it's I know. But doing that one thing, you see how it's a small thing, but it's the action of the character that I'm looking to embody, right? It's the action of the character that I'm looking to embody. It's not necessarily the thing that's going to change everything, but it's a navigation. And embodying that character that I want to be is really valuable, is really important. So there are a few things that I've noticed upon or within one of the most uncertain yet exciting periods of my life. And what I'm going to leave you with right here is I'm going to leave you with a question. What's one area in your life where you can embrace uncertainty? If you're in a situation that you don't like, you're not really vibing with it, but you're getting that message, you're getting that signal, but you're kind of putting it off, you're rationalizing. It doesn't have to be every area at once, and I'm not saying everyone should uproot their life and go solo travel. Don't do that. Don't do that at home. But what is at least one area? Maybe it's a small thing. Maybe you're vaping too much and you're getting that signal that it's not really the right thing for you, but it's you're rationalizing, you're putting it off. And really, maybe you're afraid of the uncertainty because you don't really know how you are going to feel when you give that thing up, or you decide to embrace the next thing that comes up. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. What is that one thing for you where you can embrace uncertainty? Because oftentimes when we actually start moving in that direction, we start to notice that there is a beauty to this uncertainty. And we can be so closed off from so much of life because we only know so much. There's only so much that we're conscious of. We do have to steer in to what we're unconscious of sometimes in order to grow as beings, to grow as people. Because if we stay within what's known, how would we ever evolve? How would we ever discover, explore, have fantastic new inventions and ideas? So that's what I'm going to leave you with. I really want to know, and I want you to leave that in the comments down below and let me know, what is that one area of your life where you could embrace uncertainty? I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Anyway, that's going to be for me for today. If you got value out of this, if this was an interesting little story for you, I appreciate you subscribing, helping me build up the channel. Leave a like and share this to anyone you feel like would get value out of it. I hope you're having a beautiful day, and that's me.